Carol burst through the rain-soaked street, her breath sharp and ragged as she chased after the correctional service van pulling away from the courthouse gates. "Wait!" she screamed, her voice cracking, but the van didn't slow. It kept rolling forward, carrying her father away for a crime she never believed he committed. Her shoes slipped on the wet pavement as she stumbled, hands trembling, chest rising and falling like she couldn't pull enough air into her lungs. Her mother ran after her, grabbing her by the shoulders and pulling her into a desperate embrace. "Carol, stop. Baby, please," her mother whispered, though her own voice trembled. Carol sank into her mother's arms, trembling, watching the van disappear around the corner until its taillights melted into the fog. That was the moment everything inside her broke. She didn't cry loudly. The tears slid silently, painfully, like they were burning her skin. Carol's mind screamed at the world, at fate, at the judge who refused to listen, at the powerful hands that crushed her family without mercy. But she could do nothing. She was 14, helpless, devastated, and in one moment, the life she knew dissolved into pieces too sharp to hold. Her mother steered her home, whispering, "It will be okay," even though she didn't believe it. Their front door creaked open to a house that suddenly felt colder, emptier, robbed of its anchor. The silence hit harder than any words could. Carol stared at the empty dining chair where her father used to sit. The chair felt like a ghost, a reminder that the world didn't care about innocent men or broken families. Her mother served her food she couldn't taste, tucked her into bed she couldn't sleep in, and kissed her cheek with lips still trembling from fear. That night, Carol stared at the ceiling and made a promise. One day she would find the truth behind the lies. One day she would understand what really happened. One day she would restore her father's name. But promises made by a grieving child often get buried under the weight of survival. Life didn't wait for her to grieve. Poverty hit like a slap. Bills piled. Friends vanished. Doors closed. Her mother worked 2 jobs, leaving early and returning late, her hands constantly swollen, her eyes permanently tired. Carol grew up fast, pushing pain aside just to make room for hope. She studied hard, too hard because she believed grades were her only escape. She worked part-time jobs. She denied herself everything except the dream of becoming someone strong enough to overturn the injustice crushing her family. Years passed. She didn't forget her father for a moment, but she learned not to cry at the memory of him. Instead, she hid it deep, layered under determination. She spoke less, listened more, and lived like someone running against time. Her mother always whispered, "You'll make it. You'll rise above all this." And Carol believed it. When she finally gained admission into university, she and her mother hugged in the tiny living room, both crying, both laughing, both relieved that something in their lives finally went right. "Your father would be proud," her mother said softly. Carol nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "I'll make sure of it." University life wasn't easy. She struggled financially, borrowed textbooks, worked in the school cafeteria, and sometimes skipped meals. But she was brilliant, focused, and driven by a pain she never showed. People admired her, but few truly understood her. She didn't date, didn't party, didn't let anyone close. Until the day she met Bastien Ortega. It was an accident, literally. She hurried down the stairs of the library, carrying a stack of borrowed books, when someone bumped into her. The books slipped from her arms and scattered across the steps. "Oh my God! I'm so sorry," a deep, warm voice said. She looked up and met the sharp brown eyes of a man she didn't recognize immediately, but everyone else on campus seemed to. Students whispered his name everywhere. Bastien Ortega, the son of a billionaire, heir to Ortega Enterprise, the kind of man people whispered about with awe and envy. He knelt quickly, picking up her books. "I wasn't looking. That's on me," he said, flashing a gentle smile. Carol blinked, confused that someone so wealthy and influential even bothered apologizing. "It's fine," she murmured. "No, it's not. I nearly killed your entire semester," he joked lightly, handing her the last book. She fought back a smile. "You should really watch where you're going." "I will," he replied, his eyes warm. If you promise to let me make this up to you. She raised a brow. Make it up how? Coffee, he said. Or lunch. Or both. She laughed softly, a sound she didn't even know she still had in her. One coffee. That's it. One coffee, he agreed, holding up his hands like he was making a sacred oath. One coffee became two. Two became late-night conversations. Late-night conversations became laughter, shared secrets, and a strange comfort she hadn't felt in years. Bastien was different. He listened. He cared. He noticed small things like how she always tapped her pen when she was thinking or how she preferred tea on stressful days. He didn't act like someone whose family owned half the city. He treated her as though she mattered, as though she wasn't just another face in the world. And slowly, painfully slowly, she let him in. One evening after a study session, they sat beneath a tree near the campus fountain. Bastien looked at her and said softly, "Carol, you're different. I feel calmer around you. You make me think about things that actually matter." She lowered her gaze. "I'm not special, Bastien. I just survived a lot. Then that makes you stronger than most people I know." His words hit a part of her heart she thought had closed permanently. She inhaled sharply, blinking back unexpected emotion. "Don't say that." "Why not?" "It's true. Because I don't want to rely on compliments." He smiled. "Then rely on the truth. You're the strongest person I've ever met." Her chest tightened, not from pain, but something dangerously close to hope. And hope, she knew, was always the beginning of a new problem. Carol didn't know exactly when she fell for him, but it happened quietly, like a sunrise she didn't realize was happening until the light was already on her face. Bastien made her feel seen, and that was something she hadn't felt in years. He showed up when she needed help, listened without judgment, walked her home after evening classes, and shared his own vulnerabilities in a way she didn't expect from someone with his background. He once told her, "Sometimes I think people only talk to me because of my last name. But with you, you don't care about the Ortegas. You talk to me like I'm just Bastien." She laughed. "Maybe because I didn't even know who you were the first time we met. And that might be the best thing that's ever happened to me," he replied, smiling softly. Their connection deepened until the day Bastien surprised her by showing up at her mother's house. Carol froze when her mother opened the door and saw Bastien standing outside, holding a small bouquet of sunflowers and looking oddly nervous. "Good afternoon, ma'am," he said politely. "I'm Bastien, Carol's friend." Carol nearly choked. "Mom, he's just..." Her mother smiled warmly. "Any friend of my daughter is welcome." Bastien exhaled in relief as they stepped inside. Carol watched him carefully, the way he looked around the small living room with genuine respect, not judgment. He didn't seem uncomfortable or out of place. He asked her mother how her day was, complimented the stew simmering on the stove, and sat on their worn-out sofa like it was a privilege. Later, as Carol walked him outside, he chuckled nervously. "I wasn't sure if she'd like me." "She likes you more than I do," Carol teased. "Oh? And how much do you like me exactly?" She rolled her eyes. "Don't push it." But her smile betrayed her. Months passed, and their bond grew so strong that even Carol couldn't deny what was happening. When Bastien proposed, it wasn't with fireworks or extravagance. It was beneath the same tree where they first talked about real things. The same tree where he first saw her vulnerability and she first saw his sincerity. He held her hands and whispered, "Carol, marry me. I want to build something honest with you. Something real." Her heart stuttered. A part of her feared stepping into a world she didn't belong to, but the other part, the part that yearned for love, leaned in and whispered yes. Their wedding was simple but beautiful. His family was present, dressed elegantly, their smiles polite but distant. Gustavo Ortega, Bastien's father, shook Carol's hand with a stiff smile that never reached his eyes. "Welcome," he said. "I hope you find your place with us." The tone sent a shiver down her spine. Still, the day was magical for her. Bastien held her like she was the only person in the world. Her mother cried tears of joy. Guests cheered. Carol felt, for the first time in years, that maybe life was finally giving her something good. That illusion lasted only a short while. The Ortega mansion was beautiful but cold, not because of its marble floors or high ceilings, but because of the way the people inside walked as though they were guarding secrets heavier than gold. Carol felt watched, examined, judged. One evening, as she wandered through the mansion trying to familiarize herself with her new home, she noticed a door slightly ajar at the end of the corridor. She hesitated, then gently pushed it open. The room smelled of leather and old documents. Private study, Gustavo's. She should have left. She knew it, but the soft glow of a desk lamp illuminated a stack of files, one with a familiar name in bold letters. Her father's name. Her blood ran cold. Her hand trembled as she reached for the file, her heartbeat pounding in her ears like drums of war. She opened it, and the first thing she saw was a photo of her father, younger, confused, scared, the same photo newspapers used when branding him a criminal. Her eyes darted across the pages. Financial statements, reports, blacklisting memos, and notes scribbled in a handwriting she didn't recognize. But one note stood out: obstruct until compliance. Pressure must continue. Ensure acquisition. Her breath hitched. She flipped through more pages and found something worse. Internal memos showing that Ortega Enterprise had approached her father's company years earlier, looking to buy it. He refused. He wanted to stay independent, and that refusal sealed his fate. What is this?" she whispered, her voice cracking. She found documents detailing fake financial discrepancies, bribes to investigators, manipulated audits, and a falsified confession draft. Her heart throbbed painfully. No, this can't be real. She stumbled back, gripping the desk for support. Every nerve in her body screamed. Her father wasn't guilty. He had been hunted, destroyed, eliminated as competition, and she had married into the very family that did it. Tears blurred her vision as she pressed a trembling hand to her mouth, muffling a sob. Her knees nearly buckled. A voice suddenly echoed behind her. "You shouldn't be in here." Carol whipped around, eyes wild, to see Gustavo standing at the doorway, his expression unreadable. I wasn't." He stepped inside, closing the door slowly. "Curiosity is a dangerous thing, Carol." Her voice shook. "What is all this? What did you do to my father?" Gustavo sighed as if she were an annoying child. "Your father made business complicated. He was stubborn. Obstacles are removed. That's how empires survive." Carol's breath trembled. "You ruined him. You destroyed our lives." Gustavo's eyes hardened. "Control your tone. You are an Ortega now, and the sooner you accept how the world works, the happier you'll be." "I won't stay quiet," she whispered, gripping the file tightly. His voice dropped to a chilling calm. "You will, for your own sake, and for your mother's." She froze. A cold, familiar terror wrapped around her chest. "You're threatening my mother?" "I'm advising you to stay in your lane," Gustavo replied. "Put the file down. Forget what you saw." He stepped toward her, but Carol backed away, shaking violently. She clutched the folder like her life depended on it. "No, I won't be silent. Not again." Gustavo stared at her for a long, tense moment. Then he smiled, a smile without warmth. "We'll see." Carol rushed out of the room, tears streaming down her face, heart racing, unable to breathe. Her world collapsed in an instant. Her marriage, her love, her sense of safety, everything was suddenly tainted. And by the time she reached her bedroom door, she knew one thing: this wasn't over. This was war. Carol's breath caught as she watched Bastien stare at the folder like it contained poison. He sat down slowly, his hands trembling as he flipped through the pages. Every second felt like a blade cutting through the air between them. "Tell me you didn't know," Carol whispered. "Tell me your father didn't sit at your dinner table and let you believe he was an honorable man while mine rotted in prison." Bastien swallowed hard. "I didn't know, Carol. I swear on everything I didn't know." The sincerity in his voice was real, painful even, but it didn't soothe the fire clawing inside her. She was tired of pain, tired of betrayal, tired of the Ortegas ripping her life apart. How do I believe you? She asked quietly. Because I'm sitting here trying to breathe while realizing my father is a devil I didn't recognize, he said, voice cracking. Because I love you more than I love his empire. Carol looked away, heart twisting. Love isn't protection. My father loved me too, and he still lost everything. Bastien stood and moved toward her. Let me help make this right. She stepped back. Help? Bastien, do you know what your name means out there? Doors open for you. People bow. My father lost years of his life because Ortega money shut those same doors in our faces. His jaw clenched, guilt painting his features. Then let me use that same name to flip those doors off their hinges. Carol stared at him, unsure if she should trust him or flee. But right now, she needed information. Did your father ever mention Oki and Sons Logistics? I've never heard that name, he said immediately. Then why was their bankruptcy linked directly to Ortega Enterprise transactions? He froze. What? Carol pushed the folder toward him. Those are forged reports. The initials on the bottom? Gio Gustavo Ortega. He framed my father, Bastien. He slumped into the chair, defeated. I can't believe he'd do this. I mean, I know he's controlling, manipulative, but this. Carol folded her arms tightly. You think evil announces itself? It hides behind power. A heavy silence fell. Bastien ran a hand over his face and whispered, What do you want me to do? Help me get the original documents, she said. Not the copies. The real ones locked in the Ortega vault. Bastien stiffened. That room? Carol, I don't even have access. My father keeps it under biometric lock, and only he and his personal lawyer can enter. Carol's eyes hardened. Then we find another way. He stood again. If he finds out. He already suspects I know something, Carol cut in. If he finds out, nothing changes. If he finds out, everything changes. Choose the version where my father doesn't die in prison. The room felt colder as Bastien realized the stakes. He exhaled shakily. Okay, I'll do it. I'll help you. Carol felt a painful sting of hope. Thank you. That night, Bastien waited until Gustavo went to bed before slipping out of their bedroom. Carol stayed awake, sitting on the edge of the bed with her fingers tangled in the sheets, praying silently. Minutes felt like hours. Downstairs, Bastien moved like a ghost, barefoot, cautious. He knew the mansion's patterns, the guards' rotations. He reached the hallway where the vault was located, and froze when he saw the lights on. Someone else was there. He pressed himself against the wall, listening. Voices drifted out, Gustavo and his lawyer. You're sure the girl hasn't seen these? Gustavo asked sharply. She took some files, the lawyer replied, but nothing that leads directly back to you. Bastien's heartbeat thundered in his ears. Good, Gustavo said, because if she digs any deeper, she might unearth that old fool's involvement. And then we have a problem. Should we take care of her? Bastien's blood froze solid. No, not yet, Gustavo said casually. She's married to my son. Interfering now would make me look guilty. But if she becomes a threat, then we reevaluate. Bastien staggered backwards silently, heart shattering. His father was planning Carol's destruction. He returned upstairs in a daze, closing their bedroom door with trembling hands. Carol stood immediately. What happened? Did you get anything? Bastien stared at her with haunted eyes. My father wants to take care of you. She froze. Fear flickered quickly, then transformed into pure, simmering anger. So that's his solution? Silence me? Bastien grabbed her hands. We don't have time. We need to leave. Now. Carol yanked her hands back. No, I'm not running. I've run enough in my life. This isn't about pride, he insisted. He will hurt you. You think that scares me? After what he did to my father. Her voice shook with fury. Bastien, I will burn this entire house down before I let that man win again. He cursed under his breath. Carol, please. She held up a hand. Did you get anything? No. He was in the vault. Carol's rage simmered deeper. Then we do this the hard way. The next morning, at breakfast, Carol acted normal. Gustavo watched her with silent amusement, sipping coffee like a king who believed his kingdom untouchable. She asked politely about the business. She complimented his tie. She even laughed at one of his dry jokes. But her eyes never softened. She was hunting. Later that afternoon, while Gustavo met with board members, Carol slipped into his private office. She searched through his drawers quickly, found his laptop, and tried the password attempts based on everything she knew about him. Gustavo 123. Access denied. Ortega King. Access denied. She paused, inhaling slowly, then typed, Bastien. Access granted. Her heart clenched painfully at the irony. She moved fast, pulling up financial statements, archived communications, and internal memos. There are several marked documents linking the Ortega empire to fraudulent acquisitions and forged legal claims. She clicked download. A shadow fell across the desk. Her blood ran cold. Gustavo stood at the door, watching her with a calm, deadly expression. Carol, he said, voice silky. Looking for something? She straightened slowly, trying not to let the tremor in her hands show. Actually, yes, she said. The truth. Gustavo stepped into the office and closed the door behind him. You should have stopped digging when you had the chance. Carol held his gaze without flinching. You should have thought of that before you destroyed my family. He smiled thinly. Your father was a small man in a big world. I simply removed obstacles. That small man, Carol said fiercely, is going to walk free again. Gustavo's eyes hardened. Not if I stop you first. Carol reached into her bag, her pulse racing, and pulled out her phone with the record button still running. She lifted it slowly. You already didn't stop me. Gustavo's face drained of color. For the first time, Carol saw fear in the eyes of the man who had terrified an entire industry. But she wasn't done. Carol kept the phone raised, her voice steady despite her pounding heart. Every forged document, every bribe, every instruction to ruin my father. It's all here. Gustavo's jaw tightened, fury and panic mixing on his face. You won't get away with this, Carol. You think the world will believe a girl over me? I don't need to think, she said firmly. Bastien and I will release this to the authorities. The truth doesn't need belief. It needs evidence. He lunged, but Carol had prepared. She pressed the phone against the desk and a faint beep echoed. It had started live streaming to a journalist she had discreetly contacted the day before. Gustavo froze as he realized the walls closing in. You dare, he stammered. I dare, Carol interrupted. I dare to fight for justice, for my father, for every life you've destroyed with your greed. This ends tonight. Bastien stepped beside her, strength in his stance, eyes blazing. Dad, I'm done being afraid. This family built an empire on lies, and I won't stand by anymore. The tension was palpable. Gustavo's face contorted with rage, then twisted into resignation. For the first time, Carol saw him as a man rather than an untouchable kingpin. A man who could be defeated. Within hours, the files reached national investigators. The evidence was irrefutable. Authorities swarmed Ortega Enterprise. Media outlets ran headlines exposing the fraud, bribes, and the framing of Oki and Sons logistics. Gustavo Ortega was arrested, cuffed in front of cameras, and led away as the empire he had built crumbled like sand in a storm. Meanwhile, Carol received a call from the prison. Her father's release had been expedited. She and Bastien drove through the city, hearts hammering, hands clasped tightly. When she saw him, thinner than she remembered, older than his years, eyes wide with disbelief and relief, tears poured freely. Dad! She cried, running to him. He gathered her into a hug that shook both of them, whispering hoarsely, I knew you'd fight for me. I promised, Carol said through her tears, and I always keep my promises. Bastien watched quietly, pride and guilt mingling. Carol's father turned to him, eyes sharp. You stood by her. You helped save me. I don't know if I can forgive what your family did, but I can thank you. Bastien bowed his head. I'll spend my life proving that love and truth outweigh family names, sir. Together, they stepped out of the prison, a reunited family against the backdrop of a storm clearing. Carol's father's reputation was restored, the public scandal shaking Ortega enterprise to its foundation. Justice had been served, and the world could see the truth. Days later, Carol stood on the balcony of her own apartment with Bastien by her side. The city stretched below, indifferent yet magnificent. She had fought, risked everything, and won not only her father's freedom but her own peace. Bastien looked at her, softly, with a mixture of love and reverence. "We did it," he said. Carol smiled, leaning into him. "No, you did it. We just refused to give up." She whispered to herself, remembering all the pain, all the nights of fear and loss. The truth may sleep, but it never dies. And when it wakes, it destroys everything built on lies. Her father walked in behind them, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "You have given me back my life, Carol, and more than that, hope." Bastien squeezed her hand. "Then let's make sure it stays that way." Carol took a deep breath. The storm had passed, but the lessons remained. She had learned strength, courage, and the power of standing against injustice, even when the enemy was family. As the sun rose over the city, Carol realized that the fight was over, but life, finally, could begin again. She smiled at Bastien, at her father, and at herself, knowing that nothing could take this victory from them. Not fear, not greed, not lies. She smiled one last time, a quiet victory shining in her eyes. The empire had fallen, her father was free, and she had found her place in a world that once seemed impossible to navigate. If you loved following Carol's journey and want more gripping stories filled with twists, drama, and emotion, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and leave a comment. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Don't miss the next one.